Today, my friends, we're talking about photo editing software. Two in particular, we're talking about Luminar Neo versus Photoshop and Lightroom, like the Adobe suite. And I thought I'd give you my thoughts because I am somebody who's used both of these extensively and I use them pretty much on a daily basis. And I do get asked this quite often. Is Luminar a replacement for Photoshop and Lightroom? So that's exactly what we're going to dive into, hopefully give you an idea if one or the other might be a better fit. So I should mention that I'm not sponsored by either of these companies. I think they both make a great product and they're definitely different. So I got some notes here and I thought we'd just go through and give you the stuff that I was thinking about when it comes to choosing one of these. So let's talk about Photoshop and Lightroom first. We'll talk about the pros and the cons. I'll throw some up here so you can kind of remember. But obviously Photoshop and Lightroom are the industry standard. They're the ones that have been here the longest, definitely, I would say the most intensive, and there's like a trillion things you could do with Photoshop. It is the one that you can go in and do the same thing 1,000 different ways. Endless amounts of tools. You cannot keep up with how much is always changing and coming out with, and there's just so much to do. So one of the downsides, you could kind of call it, with Photoshop is the learning curve. You're gonna have to invest quite a bit of time to kind of get where you know a little bit about everything, because you'll never master Photoshop. There's too much. Now that said, there is a billion tutorials on YouTube here and they're free, and lots of courses that you can kind of dive in and learn really quickly what you might need, or if you just need a certain aspect, that's going to be available to you. So yes, industry standard for sure. Definitely just a billion things that you can do and you can take full control, although it might not be as streamlined or as kind of one-clicky as Luminar. Luminar is a program where you can kind of go in, it utilizes AI a lot more in a lot of cases, and it's just simplified. There's lots of buttons and there's sliders, and you press the button or move the sliders and it's going to make a ton of different adjustments using AI for you. So it's a simplified version of Photoshop kind of thing. Luminar, definitely easier. It's going to be more user-friendly for beginners. So if you're just getting started out, I would definitely recommend Luminar Neo for you, especially if you don't know that you're diving full head on into photography. And we're going to talk about the investment and the money in a little bit, but just getting into kind of the nitty gritty. Yes, Luminar is simpler, it's easier, but again, Photoshop, Lightroom, industry standard, and you're gonna have more fine-tuning ability across the board. For both, you're gonna need a decent computer. I wouldn't just be buying the cheapest computer and starting photo editing. You're gonna get frustrated, but Photoshop is gonna be definitely more graphics intensive. If you are really getting into layers and all sorts of effects and whatnot, you're gonna need a pretty good computer and a pretty decent graphics card if you don't want to get frustrating. Now that said, Luminar is going to be a little bit slower on kind of budget builds or computers as well, so just got to have the patience there, definitely. So I have mentioned Photoshop a little bit. Let's talk about Lightroom for a second. Lightroom is, for me, the best and the only way to really organize and access quickly all of my photos. And I love it for that. And I really don't think there's a really good replacement for the organization of a ton of photos. And I'm talking hundreds of thousands of photos. I don't think there's a better system in place that works so seamlessly with Photoshop and everything else that you could ever need, because there's a ton of different Adobe apps. But in this video, I just want to focus on Photoshop and Lightroom that you can kind of pick up in that little bundle for pretty cheap. Luminar, you can kind of have a catalog and organize, but it's more for very small batch edits or single photo edits, I find. I wouldn't be using it to organize all my photos for the long term, that's for sure. So long story short, if you're a beginner, Luminar might be good for just kind of getting going if you're not shooting thousands upon thousands or really working actively as a photographer. It might just be an easier and better fit. If you're an intermediate or you're maybe a professional or going professional, well, really, again, industry standard. There's just a lot more kind of built into Lightroom and Photoshop for you to take advantage of as you go. Lightroom is also incredible for batch edits. If you want to edit, a bunch of photos like at the exact same time really quickly, you don't have a lot of time, you can do that really simply. Now Luminar, you can do some batch edits, but it's really not meant to, or it's not going to be definitely as efficient or quick or seamless at all. Now where Luminar really shines for me is in its creativity and ease of use. It's a fantastic program to just kind of dive in, have a single photo and be like, here's a blank canvas, let's move some sliders, let's use some cool tools and options, AI stuff, and really kind of get creative and see what we can come up with. When you're editing in Lightroom, you're not going to get super intensive into your editing. Probably you're going to be working with, you know, your basic exposure, highlights and shadows, maybe messing with the colors a bit. But for, you know, major edits, you're going to be going into Photoshop, where you can really do things like skin retouching and really diving into every single pixel and aspect of your photo. So let's quickly talk about the investment or the cost between these two softwares. Now, Adobe, Photoshop, and Lightroom do come in a little bundle. I think it's about 10 or 15 bucks a month, and there is no option to buy it outright. Unfortunately, they used to do that, but now everything, of course, is going to a subscription-based model, and some people really just don't want another bill every month. It is what it is, but they do a great job at keeping you updated with, of course, the newest updates and tech and all that stuff. Luminar Neo, however, you do have the option to buy it once and own it forever, and I personally love that. I love the fact that if something changes in my life, I don't have to worry about canceling that. It's gonna be mine forever, and they're also pretty darn good at updates. Now, I find that Luminar does have kind of a lifespan of maybe 3 to 5 years, and then they come out with a brand new software. So eventually you probably will end up not having support for that product. But again, you buy once, you have it forever, and there is a ton you can do with Luminar. It is a great one-stop shop program, and they've got add-ons and they've got plugins for it, and they've got stuff that makes it really easy, that goes beyond just your photo editing. They have focus stacking, they have panorama stitching, they've got upscaling, they've got a whole bunch of really cool stuff that you traditionally would have to buy several programs to do, or they're kind of amalgamating all of that into one. You can also go above and beyond and buy things like assets, skies, or fireworks, or other cool filters and things that they've got in their marketplace, which is kind of neat. And they also have some available in bundles that they sell if you are so inclined. For Photoshop and Lightroom, there's a million asset packs that you can buy third party and whatnot, but for the most part, you're just gonna pay that subscription and get the basic software every month. So let's recap. Is Luminar Neo a replacement for Photoshop and Lightroom? For me, absolutely not. For the organization and the tracking and just the batch edits that I do a lot of, there's just no replacement. Do I still love Luminar Neo for what it is? Absolutely. I think it's fantastic for somebody just getting started out, or maybe somebody on a budget who doesn't want a monthly bill all the time. It does go on sale for some pretty incredible prices, and definitely check down in the description for a promo code that can save you even more. If you are getting serious about photography, or if you want to be a professional and take things to the next level, I think Photoshop and Lightroom and that little package there is kind of the end game. It's the best there is, it's the industry standard, and to get in and really fine tune your photos the best, that is going to be the best option. I honestly love both softwares in their own way. I just think they're for kind of different people in different places. So hopefully this video has helped you out and given you a better idea about which one might be better for you given your situation. If this did help you out, hit that like and subscribe button, join the community, and make sure you drop all your questions and your comments down below. I do have affiliate links to pick up either of these softwares, like I said, maybe with or without a discount code, depending on what's going on. I'll do my best to keep that updated down there for you. And like always, make mistakes, be yourself, and get out there and take some more pictures. See you next time.